I hope all is going well and you're having a beautiful, blessed day. And right now, I want to hang out with you for a little bit and share with you my sermon notes from this past weekend. We are still in the sermon series called Zip It. And this weekend, our subject was anger. So there is a verse that I want to read to you from Ephesians chapter 4, and it's verses 26 and 27. And it says, Do not sin by letting anger control you. Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry. For anger gives the devil a foothold. And so what that really means is we should resolve our anger. We should resolve our issues before we go to bed, because Satan can use what we are angry about to make anything worse than it really is, or worse than it has to be. So, moving on, there are two wrong ways to handle your anger. The first wrong way is being a spewer. And spewers express their anger. And the verse that goes along with this passage, or this point, it says, Fools vent their anger, but the wise quietly hold it back. And that comes from Proverbs 29, verse 11. And the second wrong way to handle your anger is to stew in your anger. The second type of people are called stewers. And stewers, what they do is suppress their anger. And so there is a verse from Psalms, and it's Psalm 23, verse 3. And this is King David talking. And he says, When I kept silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day long. And what he's telling us through that is anger is not just something that can affect our mouth and infect our mind, but it can affect, I keep saying infect, and maybe that is the right word, but it can affect our body as well. So the second section I want to go into is the right way to handle anger. And so right way number 1 is when you have sinful anger. That means anger that is not from God and causing you to do things that are not from God or not God honoring, is you should put it away. And the verse that illustrates this point comes from Ephesians 4, and it's verses 31 and 32. And it says, Get rid of all bitterness, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you. And again, that is Ephesians 4, 31 and 32. And so that point also leads me to our memory verse. And our memory verse for this week comes from James. And it's chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. And it says, Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. So, the second section of my notes talks about, or the second bullet point on my notes talks about sanctified anger. Sanctified anger is when you have anger about something that actually angers God. like homelessness or any human right issue that might anger God. And so when we have sanctified anger, we shouldn't hide it. We should fan the flame. And so Jesus, or in Mark chapter 3, verse 5, it says, Jesus looked around at them angrily, and he was saddened by their hard hearts. Then Jesus said to the man, "Hold out your hand." So the man held out his hand, and he was restored. Okay, so what happened in this passage was that the religious leaders were angry that Jesus went to the temple to heal somebody on the Sabbath, which even in the eyes of the religious leaders, Jesus was working on the Sabbath because of the fact that he wanted to heal this man. And so it is true that we should keep the Sabbath, but healing can come on any day. Jesus can work on any day. There's nothing and no day holding him back. Okay, so the next section that I want to get into is, if I have a problem with anger, what do I do? One, the first thing you do is admit it. And the point that illustrates this is actually a point that tells us what anger really is. Anger is a heart problem. Matthew 12, verse 34 says, "For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of." So if you have an anger problem, you have a heart problem. Bullet point number 2 that you're supposed to do is ask God for his help to bring my anger under his control. And the passage that illustrates this comes from Colossians, and it's Colossians chapter 3, verse 8, and then verse 12 to 13. And it says, "But now is the time to get rid of anger, rage, malice, malicious behavior, slander, and dirty language. Since God chose you to be the holy people he loves, you must clothe yourself with tender-hearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Make allowances for each other's faults, and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others." And so, you guys, that is the message for today. And if you would like the notes to this message, these exact notes are in a blog post on my blog, CoachMarieNicole.com. And I hope that you have a beautiful, blessed day. And if you are angry with somebody, I pray that you would tell God about it and let it go. A tip that I have for you that was not on my notes, but that I have practiced in the past, is when you are angry with somebody or about something, you should write that person or that thing a letter, but don't send it to that person. Instead, rip it up and pray over it, because that is a tangible way for you to give it to God and get rid of it. So if you pray over it and then you rip it up, that is an actionable, tangible way to say, "Here, God, take it." But in this letter, you can be your most human self. You can say words that you would never say to a person's face. And the reason why I encourage that is because if you say words that you would never say to somebody, 4-letter words, for example, if you fill that letter with the things that you would never say to a person, that message at that moment is only between you and God. It's not between you and that person. Where you sin is by going to a person and cursing them out. But if you were to tell God exactly what's on your heart without any filter, then that's not sinning. That's not sinning. That is doing the right thing. So I would encourage you guys, if you are going through anger, to write a letter or write a list of the things that you're angry about. Pray over it, genuinely give it to God. And you might have to do this 3 or 4 times depending on how bad the situation is, but it works. It really, really does work. At least it has worked for me, and I hope that it will work for you. And I hope that you have a beautiful, blessed week, and all is going well. And again, if you are angry, just know that God is there and you can give it to Him. I'll talk to you soon. Have a blessed one. Bye-bye.